Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Tree Talks by Husqvarna. I'm one of your hosts, Gent Simmons.
And I'm Ingrid Ekström. In this series of episodes, we are bringing up different topics around the tree professionals. And why are we doing that? We at Husqvarna are on a mission to share as much knowledge as possible to advance the industry around arboriculture and forestry. And in this episode, we're going to talk about one of the most important topics, safety.
Yes, and that's exactly the reason why we've invited Dan Groves to be with us today. Dan is an arborist, an educator. In fact, he's taught for many years at a private college in upstate New York, teaching forestry. He's also a business owner. He's worked all over the United States in the profession of arboriculture, and currently he's Director of Safety for North American Training Solutions. But also, and maybe most importantly, I'm happy to call him a friend of mine.
And we're also going to meet our H-Team ambassador, Ann Elisabeth Jacobsen. She's a chainsaw instructor, she's a professional logger, and we are going to listen to her view around safety and how important it is to continuously develop within this area.
So with that, let's get started. I turn it over to my good friend, Dan Groves.
Hi, my name is Dan Groves. I'm from North American Training Solutions, and I'm here with you today to discuss a safety mindset. What is a safety mindset? Well, it's pretty easy, really. We all know what safety is, and we all try to incorporate safe work practices into our everyday lives as much as possible. And a mindset is, well, trying to have a holistic attitude about everything that we do at work and throughout our lives to try to be as safe as possible. And some of that's actually holding ourselves accountable and holding those around us accountable for all sorts of things. We're going to dive into that in a little bit. So one of the things that I've often seen over the years is when there is an accident, folks will sometimes say, well, he was dressed for success. Look at him. He had every possible piece of personal protective equipment on, and yet he still got hurt. It must have been a freak accident. I don't believe in that at all. And in fact, I think that looking at someone like that and thinking that they're dressed for success could set the wrong mindset for us. Because there's so much more to safety than just having on the personal protective equipment that goes along for the particular hazards on that site. I often like to think about a safety mindset as a culture, a safety culture, that we try to build upon ourselves and with everybody on our work site. Sometimes when I show up at a job site, I'll look around and I'll think, okay, what are the ways that we could get hurt today? What are the things that could cause damage to ourselves or to personal property today? And I try to quantify those things. I try to understand as much as I can about each one of those things. And then I try to figure out how am I going to minimize that? How am I going to try to minimize all those potential risks and hazards and eliminate as many as possible before I even start my work? I'd like to introduce to you the concept of the NIOSH triangle. The NIOSH triangle is an upside down triangle, and you'll notice that at the very top of the triangle, it says elimination. Wouldn't that be great if we could just eliminate all the risks and hazards on our job site? Well, that would be great, but it's not always possible, is it? Still, there are ways that we can think about it like that. For instance, if we had a situation where maybe we were going to climb a tree and there was a hanger up in that tree, what if we could use our throw line and remove that hanger first? We've eliminated a potential threat. That makes our lives that much better. The next one underneath, you'll see substitution. Well, that gets a little more tricky, doesn't it? But we might be able to substitute one hazard for a lesser hazard or one risk for a lesser risk. Imagine, for instance, if we had a spring pole. We had a branch that was bent over, and rather than cutting it with a conventional chainsaw, well, maybe we substitute that with a pole saw. It puts the operator that much further away from the danger zone. So substitution is a good way of looking at these risks too and trying to analyze how we can minimize them. Underneath that, we have engineering controls, and thank goodness our chainsaws have an awful lot of engineering controls on them. We've got our throttle interlock. We've got our chain brake. We've got our chain catch pin. There's all sorts of things that the engineers have designed into these saws so that we can operate them as safely as possible. Even such that the chain is further away on one side of the chainsaw than the other. So that's why we always operate the chainsaw with our left hand on the front handle. And we never operate it like this because it would put that chain very close to our right leg. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. So we've gone through and we know that we'd like to eliminate or substitute. We have engineering controls. The next one down is called administrative controls. Well, what could that be? What's an example of an administrative control? Think about three-way communication. What if we had a policy or procedure in place that we were always going to use three-way communication on a job site? For instance, if someone's up in a tree and they want to prune a limb off, they would maybe holler out, "Stand clear." The person on the ground would then make sure that everything is clear, back out of the drop zone, and reply to the climber and say, "All clear." At that point, the climber would take one last look around, make sure that they're all set, and then say cutting. So now we've got that three-way communication. If you can also add into that where you have some eye contact, that's always helpful as well. So that nonverbal communication. If it's a noisy job site, you can then come up with hand signals that'll help you out too. So that's an example of an administrative control. And then the last thing we get down to at the very bottom of the triangle, that very smallest part, is our personal protective equipment, such as safety glasses, hearing protection, a helmet, gloves, chainsaw protective pants, and boots. Those are incredibly important, but really, that's the last thing that I want to rely upon. I don't want to rely upon my helmet for stopping a branch from hitting my head. So what I want to do is use those other controls in the NIOSH hierarchy of controls to try to keep myself safe and not rely on personal protective equipment to help me get through my day. So let's talk a little bit more about personal protective equipment since we've already touched upon that subject. Personal protective equipment, or apparel, is basically what I have on. I've got my helmet, face shield, safety glasses, I've got gloves, I've got high visibility, I've got chainsaw protective leggings and boots on, and all of these things are designed to keep me safe. And we've already talked about how we can think about the NIOSH hierarchy of controls as our entire safety culture or mindset. So let's think about this for a minute. Every year in the United States, there's about 30,000 chainsaw accidents. 30,000 chainsaw accidents that produce an injury every year in the United States. I don't know about you, but I think that's way too many. So, how can we think about that? When we look at the statistics of where those accidents happen, 90% of those accidents happen on the left leg or on the left hand and the left arm. Why is that? Well, obviously the left leg, because even though they've designed the chainsaw to have the chain further away on that side, we still know that because we're always holding the chainsaw in this manner, that we're going to end up with more accidents on that left side. And realistically, we should never be operating the chainsaw like this anyways, so the right side's going to have fewer accidents. Well, what about the left arm? Why are there so many there? Well, I'll tell you, it's because of the top-handled chainsaws. The chainsaws that are designed to have a top handle, and folks who are maybe operating out of an aerial lift or a bucket truck are using those, maybe holding the branch and then using that as a one-handed cut. That's absolutely the wrong thing to do, and there is no such chainsaw that's made to make one-handed chainsaw cuts. So, how can we think about making our lives safer? If we could just get people to keep two hands on a chainsaw, or to wear chainsaw protective chaps, we would reduce that number by 90%. Let's look at it another way. Using the NIOSH hierarchy of controls, yes, PPE at the bottom, that would certainly help some folks. But let's go back up to that replacing one hazard with another, right? So substitution. What if I were in an area lift and I were wanting to make that one-handed chainsaw cut so that I could hold on to the branch so it didn't drop down and hit my truck or something like that? Well, rather than using a chainsaw, what if I were to use a handsaw? That would be a great way to eliminate that threat and to try to keep myself safer. So the NIOSH hierarchy of controls is a fantastic way for you to incorporate all of these different ideas throughout your day to try to keep yourself as safe as possible. But there's more to a safety mindset than just using this NIOSH hierarchy of controls. And think about it from your crew's perspective. So, have you ever heard the term, a rising tide lifts all boats? It's one of my favorite terms to use. What I like to do is to try to hold those who I'm working with accountable, and I want them to hold me accountable too. I'm human. There's times when I forget to put down my earmuffs or my face shield, or I forget to put my gloves on. I really appreciate it when my coworkers hold me accountable and they say, hey, Dan, you forgot. Put your face shield down. And you know, we can actually make a game out of it too. Sometimes I've seen folks actually take and when they see somebody forgetting to use their chain brake, they'll make them do chain brake push-ups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So it makes a game out of it, kind of helps us hold each other accountable and makes the day go by a little bit faster. So trying to incorporate all of these different things into your day can help you build situational awareness. It can help you build a safety mindset. It can help you understand all the different levels, all of those hierarchies of control. So when you walk out onto that job site and you try to begin your pre-job briefing and you're trying to assess all those different hazards and you're trying to figure out how can I mitigate those? How can I make my day as safe as possible so that I can go home at the end of the day to the people that I love, and my coworkers can go home at the end of the day to the people that they love, and you know, how can we just help each other out? So I like to think of that as a safety mindset. I think to incorporate that into your daily life and your daily work practices is a positive thing for everyone around you. And I hope that this talk has helped you understand the ways that I think about a safety mindset, and I hope that you'll incorporate that in your day too.
Thank you, Dan. That was really interesting, and especially how important it is to assess all different areas to have a safe work site. One of Husqvarna's cornerstones is to advance the industry. What areas are we looking into, Gent?
Well, actually, we at Husqvarna, along with some of our strategic partners, are looking into a number of different areas, but we're paying special attention to the areas of safety. And also we're paying a lot of attention to the areas of communications. But communications, of course, is a big part of safety, as you can more easily communicate with the teams. And also with more efficient or more communications, you get more efficiency as well. So it's a big topic of ours and a big area we're looking into, both safety and communications. But I need to stop there. I want to make sure that we keep some of our secrets close, but we will be sharing more information in the near future. So please stay tuned.
Ah, interesting. Great to hear. So now we are going to invite Ann Elisabeth Jacobsen to this episode around safety. Hi, Ann Elisabeth.
Hello, Ingrid and Jen.
Hi.
So where are you calling from right now?
I just arrived home after a day in the forest.
Oh, nice. And you are sort of in the middle of forest in Sweden, right?
Yeah, I live kind of in the forest.
I'm jealous. We've been in the studio all day.
Yes, exactly. I know that safety is a huge passion of yours, and not only as a chainsaw instructor, but also how you share all those important topics in the Tree Pro community. And we are going to ask a couple of questions to you around safety today. So, Gent, please.
So, Ann Elisabeth, safety really begins even before you start the chainsaw, right?
Yes, absolutely. When it comes to safety, for me, it's a lot about practicing the safety routines. The days when you are not actually in a really bad work site. So when you have a lot of space and the weather is good, practice the safety routines so they are actually in your body and mind the day you actually need them.
You talk about being in the body and mind, so I have to ask you about work positioning. How important is work positioning when working with a chainsaw?
For me, a good working position is number one. After, of course, all the risk assessment and looking at the tree, when you finally start your chainsaw and start to cut, you have to stand on the right place, look at the right place, and hold your saw steady so you can do a good job. Because if you're not having a good working position, it's much harder to do a good work.
So what routines do you always talk about when you are a chainsaw instructor? What do you want to pass along to the viewers that are listening in today?
If we go back to before we start the chainsaw, for me it's about to look at the tree and the surroundings, because you have to actually think the worst case scenario. So if you mess up, where will the tree end up landing? Because you need to stand on the safe side of the tree. And then when you start cutting, you need to stand so you can see what you are doing, because I see that many people stand like behind the tree when they start to cut, and then it's really hard to see where your face cut is, and you can't make a good hinge. And the hinge is actually what's going to hold the tree till it's on the ground.
Ann Elisabeth, one thing I used to say when I was training to the students was how important not getting fatigued is. You say fatigue is the leading cause of injury, or one of the leading causes of injury. Do you see that a lot out there? People overworking and getting really tired when they're working, and any tricks or suggestions for how to avoid fatigue?
Yes, of course. I think time pressure and also like feeling you have to finish everything before you go home can be a big problem and cause accidents, because it's really heavy work. You have to be alert 100% of the time. So for me, it's also about at least take a short break and recharge your batteries, or maybe decide to finish up the next day, because when you start to get tired, that's when bad things happen.
When you're doing training, Ann Elisabeth, do you have a methodology you use to teach? We used to have like a 5-step plan on felling a tree to make it really easy to lock it into people's heads. Do you have similar methodologies like that you use?
Yes, I have. I normally start to talk about what you do when you come to the work site, how you park your car. Everyone in the work team should know where you are, so you can call for help and give the right address or GPS coordinations. And of course, secure the surroundings. So at least put up signs to make random people aware about you're doing jobs there. And of course, if needed, you would close the area, so don't let anyone in. And when you look at the tree, decide where to fell it, and look at the environment and plan for the felling. So for me, it's really important that you have this escape plan. I think many people, they think that, well, it's sunny when we came, and then when you work, it will start snowing a lot. So you need to be able to get your cars out, things like that. So before you actually fell the tree, you need to know these things. And when you finally fell the tree, make sure that you have a clean escape route before you start cutting. And then, of course, you make a good face notch and a good hinge who would hold and control the tree all the way. And before you let go of the tree, you should always check. The last thing you do is to check that no one has been walking into the area.
That's about a 5-step plan, I think. Yeah, that's really good. Thank you for sharing that. I would love for you, because I think it's so important, to elaborate a bit more on the escape plan and how to really plan for that. Could you take us through a little bit more on the escape plan?
Do you mean around the tree or from the work site if anything happens?
I was meaning around the tree.
Yeah, around the tree. For me, the escape route is 45 degrees from the side of the tree. So, and then for me, you will walk controlled from the tree, having your eyes on the tree, and also before you fell the tree, you clean up the area so you won't fall over some branches.
So, Ann Elisabeth, I give you the final word on safety today.
Keep learning, keep practicing your safety routines, see a trainer or join a course. Anyone can fell a tree, not all can do it in a safe way.
That's some really great final words, right, Gent?
Good final words and good tips for everyone to follow.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today, Ann Elisabeth.
Thanks a lot for having me.
And that was everything from us. We have received some really good tips from Dan and Ann Elisabeth on safety.
And we certainly hope that you found today's episode valuable. And please don't forget to check out more of our episodes where we cover other topics that are helping advance the industry.